Okay, so I'm going to pick who's going to answer first. Swati, please can you switch on your camera and mic?
Good morning, sir.
Hi Swati. Have you attended a Viva before in your college? Which college are you
Um,
in?
I'm from Tagore Medical College, Chennai. We've had vivas during our internal assessments.
Okay. What do you feel about those Vivas? What kind of questions do they ask?
So mostly we didn't find any fixed pattern as such. They asked all
Okay.
sorts of questions. So, yeah,
Are you ready for the Viva?
sort of, not sure.
Okay, let's begin. Okay. Simple question first.
Okay, so
So we'll start off with biochemistry. What are the different fat soluble vitamins which you know with their functions?
okay, so the fat soluble vitamins are vitamins A, D,
Okay.
E, and K. So
Okay.
vitamin A mainly plays a major role in Wall's visual cycle, where it forms a part of photopigments, so
Very
rhodopsin
good.
and retinal. Apart from that, vitamin D is mainly involved in calcium homeostasis in the body. Vitamin E is an important antioxidant where it works along with selenium, and vitamin K is mainly involved in as a part of clotting factors.
Very good, Swati. Now I'm going to ask you an extra question here. Do you know the other names of these vitamins? Like
Um,
you said, vitamin A has a specific chemical name. Do you know that?
yes, it exists in three forms: retinol, retinal,
Yeah.
and
Oh, very
retinoic
good.
acid.
Vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. Those names.
Vitamin E is also known as tocopherol,
Very good.
and vitamin D can be active form is calcitriol,
Yeah, very
and
good.
I'm not sure about vitamin K, sir.
Vitamin K is known as phytomenadione. Okay. We're going to talk more about vitamin K now. So we're going to switch into physiology. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So what do you know about vitamin K? You didn't tell me anything about it.
So vitamin K mainly works along with the clotting factors
Very
in
good.
both the.
Do you know the clotting factors which are dependent on vitamin K?
No, sir, I'm not sure about this one.
Okay, it's 2, 7, 9 and 10. Okay. Okay. You can go read about that. So what do you know about this coagulation cascade?
So mainly in the coagulation cascade, first when one factor gets activated, starts off this entire mechanism where it starts activating the other factors, and they all work together to form the final clot which plugs in the wound.
What is that final clot?
It's a fibrin clot.
Okay. Okay. Now this is a very general answer. I'm looking for something specific. There are different pathways in the coagulation cascade. You know anything about that?
So there are two pathways, extrinsic pathway and the intrinsic pathway.
Okay.
Um,
Which one is quicker? How does it get activated? Anything?
I guess the extrinsic pathway is quicker and it immediately starts off. I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about the coagulation pathway.
Okay, you are right. Please carry on. You are right. Extrinsic pathway is quicker. Can you guess why?
Because actually the extrinsic pathway and intrinsic pathway they share a common final pathway, but the thing is it starts off in the middle, so there are less factors involved, and so it's quicker.
That is a very bookish answer. What I was expecting is intrinsic pathway gets triggered when something happens to the endothelial layer of the blood vessel. Okay, so it happens within the blood vessel. Okay,
Yes,
but
sir.
extrinsic pathway is triggered when there is a trauma to the blood vessel. So it's more dangerous and it has to be dealt with immediately. So
Okay, sir.
immediately coagulation takes place. Okay, these are very small things which if you know it will be very useful for you while clinically diagnosing what kind of coagulation is taking place and what kind of uh, anticoagulants you're supposed to give.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so moving on to your anatomy, do you know the structure of a blood vessel?
Okay, so the blood vessel mainly has three layers:
Okay,
tunica externa, tunica media, and tunica intima.
okay,
Now, tunica externa is the outermost layer, which generally contains loose connective tissue. Tunica media contains smooth muscles as well as elastic tissue. Depending on the type of blood vessel we are talking about, the distribution can vary. While tunica intima contains flat endothelial cells.
Okay, very good. So your last question on anatomy will be, can you tell me in brief about the blood supply of the upper limb?
Okay, sir. So the blood supply of the upper limb is first starts from the axillary artery. Axillary artery is a continuation of the subclavian artery, which starts at the outer border of the first rib. So this axillary artery will then give rise to the brachial artery at the lower border of the teres major. This brachial artery will then give rise to the radial and ulnar artery at the inferior part of the cubital fossa. These radial and ulnar arteries will then divide and branch out and give rise to the palmar arches and palmar arches and everything. So it ends up supplying the palm as well.
Okay. So can you tell me the branches of the axillary artery?
So the axillary artery is divided into three parts. The first part gives rise to the the superior thoracic artery. The second part gives rise to the lateral thoracic artery and long thoracic artery, and the third part gives rise to the anterior and the medial and lateral circumflex humeral arteries and the subscapular artery.
Yeah, you got one wrong. It is actually the thoracoacromial artery and not
sir.
long thoracic artery. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So that would be all for you. Thank you, Swati. You answered really well, but be more specific with your answers, and if you don't know anything, just remain silent. Okay, don't give out wrong answers like that. Long thoracic artery. You were going very well, but that is a mistake over there. So you were really confident and were really happy with your performance. So moving on to the next person. So we'll go ahead with your questions. Okay.
Yes,
so tell me about the anterior compartment of the thigh. I'm asking you in general.
Sir, anterior compartment of thigh, it consists of muscles, quadriceps femoris. It has four parts, namely vastus medialis, vastus lateralis. Then it has sartorius.
Wait, you said quadriceps femoris, right? There are four. You have said only two.
Yes, sir. Vastus medialis, then vastus lateralis, then
rectus.
Yes, sir, rectus femoris, and
vastus.
Yes, sir, vastus intermedius.
Okay, go on.
And then it has sartorius, then gracilis.
No, yes, go on about the other parts.
Other parts like means blood supply.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Anterior compartment. So not sure about the blood supply and also.
Okay. Can you tell me the branches of the terminal branches of the descending aorta?
Descending aorta terminal branches.
Yeah.
Okay.
How does the aorta? It splits into two main arteries. Right?
External iliac and internal iliac, sir.
Before that?
Before common iliac. Iliac.
So first it splits into left and right common iliac. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then that common iliac splits into internal and external iliac. Very good. Sir. Now external iliac continues as what?
External iliac it continues as femoral artery, sir.
Yeah. So that is your blood supply of the anterior compartment. Okay. In case you forget the blood supply, you just go back to the heart and then come to that region. So like I didn't give you the answer. You got it on your own, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So that's how, suppose you forget some artery, you can go back to that. Okay. Vein.
Then the anterior compartment nerve supply is by sir.
Okay.
Quite weak in lower sir.
It's okay. It's not an issue. Just remember that the anterior compartment of thigh, the vessels, nerve supply, all will be similar. Like there will be a femoral vein, There will be a femoral artery and a femoral nerve. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The medial compartment of thigh is supplied by the obturator nerve.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And the posterior will be supplied by.
The sciatic nerve, sir.
Yeah,
Sciatic
very
nerve.
good. So those three are the main nerve supplies of the lower limb. From
Okay,
these,
sir.
there will be many branches which you need to study. I can't go into the details now. Now you said,
Okay, sir.
told me about the muscles, right? So let's go into physiology.
Okay, sir.
What do you know about skeletal muscle contraction?
Sir, skeletal muscle has it is voluntary muscle. It has a myosin and actin filaments.
Okay.
It has going deep into it. The neuromuscular junction, acetylcholine is being released and it is uptaken by the T tubule. Then the
Okay.
calcium is released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Then
Okay.
it binds with the troponin C and it causes it removes the masking of the myosin filament. Then the
By-
muscle contracts by utilizing ATP. One ATP is being utilized for muscle contraction. Then that's it, sir. It has a I band,
Okay.
A band. I band is
Okay.
being formed by
Yeah,
actin.
No. I don't want the zones, the head zone, the eye zone, A zone. I
Okay,
don't
sir.
want about that. I want you to tell me what is tropomyosin.
A tropomyosin, it binds around the myosin, sir. Myosin, tropomyosin, and actin are the three components of the skeletal muscle. Tropomyosin.
No. Be very specific. You told me the right answer that it binds around the myosin filament. You stop over there, okay? Don't go
Okay,
into
sir.
further details.
Okay, sir.
Do you know, have you heard about anything called ryanodine receptor?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, what is it?
Ryanodine receptor is present in the T tubule, sir. It is present in the T
Okay,
tubule.
what does it do?
It facilitates. It only facilitates the motor end plate potential, sir. It only first transmit the impulse, then only the muscle contracts. It's also
No.
component of triad of the T tubule.
Yeah, you are right about the T tubule part, but its function is not conduction of the nerve impulse from the neuromuscular junction. Its function is to release calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum to cause contraction.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So very good. You said your ATP is required for muscle contraction, right?
Yeah, yes,
So
sir.
I would like to go into biochemistry with that ATP.
Okay,
Do you know what are the sources of ATP?
Sources of ATP. ATP can be produced by sir, the creatine to creatine phosphate in muscle, sir. Creatine is
No. I'm talking biochemistry now. Okay.
Okay,
I'm
sir.
asking you about the sources of ATP.
Sources of ATP. Sir, what do you mean by that? ATP is produced from adenosine triphosphate, sir.
No, you're telling the process of production of ATP. I'm asking you from what it is produced.
From adenine, sir. From adenine is converted to adenosine. It is combined with phosphate. It has too high energy.
Okay. I'll help you here. Do you know anything about the electron transport chain?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
In
so
electron transport
can
chain,
you
ATP.
link it together and answer me?
Sir, in electron transport chain, ATP is produced, sir. It has
Okay, I'll make it more simple for you. What are the two reducing equivalents from which ATP are produced?
reducing equivalents. Sir, not sure about that.
Okay, what do you get from glycolysis and TCA?
Glycolysis. From glycolysis, we get pyruvate, sir.
That is end product of glycolysis. I'm asking something from glycolysis goes into this electron transport chain, no?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
From glycolysis.
Okay, we're wasting time. I'll give you the answer. It's NADH and FADH. Okay, those
Okay,
two
sir,
are
okay.
the reducing equivalents. From that only most of the ATP is formed.
Okay,
Now,
sir.
I was going to ask you what are the sources of this NADH and FADH. So I already gave out the answer.
HMP shunt.
That is NADPH, which is
NADPH.
completing very different.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
NADH, FADH is different. So from where does this NADH and FADH come?
NADH and FADH, sir, not sure, sir.
Okay, okay. I'll make things very simple for you, okay? Any
sir.
type of energy is going to be in the form of ATP, which you already know. So
Okay,
this
sir.
ATP is going to come from NADH or FADH. Why these two, na? This H is there, no, at the end. That hydrogen is going to create a potential difference across the mitochondrial membrane. So this ATP is produced when that hydrogen goes back from the internal mitochondrial membrane to the outside through this ATP synthase.
Okay, sir.
So NADH and FADH are the main sources of ATP. First point to be noted.
Okay,
Second point, glucose produces most ATP. This you might be knowing.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, do you know if fats and proteins produce ATP?
Yes, sir. The pathways I'm not sure, but fat and yes, sir, it produces ATP.
Yeah, I do. Okay, fat is by beta oxidation.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And protein is by aminogenic amino acids are they come and join into the TCA cycle in various parts. So this all very complicated stuff, but the basics are glucose, fats and proteins can be used for making energy. Energy is going to be formed from NADH and FADH predominantly, which will be converted into ATP in the electron transport chain. Okay, this is what I wanted to get through these questions. So thank you,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Monisha. So please be more specific, and biochemistry is not as hard as you think. There may be many complicated terms, okay? But just keep listening through this Viva and I will cover most of biochemistry over here and you will get all important points based on which you can study more of biochemistry much easily.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Just a small review. Can you tell me what you understood about this energy production, electron transport chain, glycolysis, TCA?
Yes, sir. ATP can be produced from oxidation, beta oxidation of fatty acid. Then from electron transport chain, the ATP is produced by the ATPase activity of mitochondria, sir. Then
Wait, ATPase is different, ATP synthase is different.
ATP
Okay.
synthase, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Okay,
ATP
be very
synthase.
specific with your words in biochemistry.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next candidate.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so what do you know about the blood supply of the heart?
Yeah, so heart is supplied by two coronary arteries, the left coronary artery and the right coronary arteries. So the left coronary artery continues as the atrioventricular artery. Yeah, and gives out the circumflex artery.
Yeah.
So the circumflex artery anastomoses is the right coronary artery behind the heart. And the right coronary artery gives out a marginal branch and a branch to the SA node. And the atrioventricular artery anastomoses the posterior interventricular artery, anterior interventricular artery, anastomoses the posterior interventricular artery behind the heart. And yeah, that's it, sir.
So very good. So do you know what is the most common cause of death related to heart?
MI, myocardial infarction.
Do you have any idea what happens during this MI?
Yeah, myocardial infarction is when there is a blocked artery, like when there is a blockage in the artery due to cholesterol, arteriosclerosis, and the patient will feel that he's sinking, like he'll have severe chest pain, angina, and he'll feel like he's sinking, like that's a symptom.
Yeah, you got it. It's MI, and I wanted to talk a little bit about atherosclerosis. Please have that in your mind. We'll come back to that when we're talking about biochemistry, okay?
Okay.
So going into physiology, tell me something about the cardiac cycle.
Yeah, so cardiac cycle is around 0.8 seconds. So it has an atrial systole and a diastole and ventricular systole diastole. So the ventricular systole is around 0.3 seconds and diastole is around 0.5 seconds.
No, I'm not looking for data. I want like understanding.
Yeah, the steps.
What do you know? Yeah.
So the first major step is the atrial contraction, where the atrium contracts. So after that, the 20% filling of the ventricle happened due to atrial contraction. After that, the isovolumetric contraction phase takes place, where the mitral valve and the semilunar valve, the tricuspid and mitral valve closes and the semilunar valves close. So there is increase in the pressure in the ventricle from 0 to 80 to around 120 mmHg. When the pressure reaches more than the aortic pressure, there is something called the rapid ventricular ejection phase, where the blood enters the aorta and supplies the other parts of the body. After that, you have the slow ventricular ejection phase, where the pressure reduces from 120 to 80 mmHg. And then you have isovolumetric relaxation phase, where both the valves close and all the valves close, and there is a relaxation of the ventricle. So end diastolic volume 120 ml. That's the isovolumetric relaxation. Then after that, you have the rapid ventricular. You have the rapid ventricular filling and the slow passive ventricular filling. So that happens because the atria has the blood, right? So it enters the ventricle. It happens because of that. It's called diastasis. And then after that, you have the cycle repeats itself.
Okay, I'm going to ask you an extra question over here. Okay, do you know something called pulmonary embolism?
Yeah.
So what do you think happens to the heart if there's a pulmonary embolism?
Pulmonary embolism.
Okay, pulmonary embolism in the
so
pulmonary artery.
what happens? So because of that, the blood will not be able to enter the lungs. So the patient will have, patient will die if not treated. Actually, it happens because of the thrombus formation in the.
I'm asking about what happens to the heart. They won't die immediately.
Ischemia. There's ischemia, I think, taking place. I'm not sure, sir.
Okay. Be very clear. Your right heart pumps blood into the pulmonary artery. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a emboli over there.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's going to happen?
So regurgitation of the blood back to the
and
the vein, and right ventricular hypertrophy.
Yeah, that was what I was looking for. Do you know about congenital defects of the heart?
Yeah, there are most common of them is the tetralogy of Fallot. Then you have the interposition of the aortic vessels. Oh, no, sorry, the great vessels. And then you have about, what is it? Yeah, truncus arteriosus, the persistent truncus arteriosus. So do you want me to explain everything? Or?
No. I just wanted to check if you knew about all that. So very good. Your heart anatomy and physiology is pretty good. So moving on to biochemistry, you told me something about atherosclerosis and MI, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? I want to ask you in biochemistry about that.
Beta oxidation, fatty acid synthesis, and the accumulation of.
Okay. Since you went there, what do you think beta oxidation fatty does?
Yeah, basically it happens when there's starvation taking place, right? So it activates the glucagon, activates the beta oxidation, where the fatty acids are converted to acetyl CoA, and so that ATP is produced, which help involved in the ATC cycle to, during starvation it helps you.
Okay, very good. You got it perfectly. But how does this relate to atherosclerosis?
No, I'm sorry, this does not relate actually.
Okay, what does?
You have cholesterol synthesis pathway. No, it doesn't.
Cholesterol?
Yeah, actually cholesterol accumulates, which causes arteriosclerosis, but
cholesterol directly goes to the heart and...
No,
I gave you a very big clue right there. Okay, I'll make it simple for you. How is fat transported across the body?
Oh yeah, lipoprotein.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you have the chylomicron, the LDL, VLDL.
Okay. I'll ask you a very specific question.
Okay.
In a diabetic hypertensive patient prone to MI, what will be his level of LDL, VLDL, and HDL?
He'll have very high LDL levels. The VLDL also will be high. The HDL will be very low actually, HDL.
Okay, how can you increase HDL levels?
You can increase by eating healthy food. No.
Okay. Not exactly.
You learned that, sir, in the first year, so.
Yeah.
Not exactly sure.
It's not that you're not learned, but you're not taught to apply all of those things, okay?
Yeah.
So lipoprotein metabolism, why I asked about that is your VLDL and LDL, what you need to take away from lipoprotein metabolism is that it carries fat away from the liver, okay?
Yeah.
So when it does that, it goes into various vessels, and one of those vessels is this most common site is left descending LAD, left anterior
Yeah.
descending artery. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that is something which you need to know. And HCl is something which brings fat from different areas of the body into liver for metabolysis.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted you to know about atherosclerosis and lipoprotein metabolism. And I wanted to look out for these links when you study next time. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was very happy that you linked fat metabolism into ATP and you picked up that question I asked to the previous candidate. So that will be all for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So what are the different pulmonary volumes which you know?
Lung volumes and lung capacity. So lung
Yeah.
volumes is tidal volumes, expiratory reserve volume, inspiratory reserve volume, and respiratory volume. And
Respiratory volume.
sorry, residual volume.
Okay. I'll ask you, okay, since you know a little bit about this, which can you not measure directly?
Residual volume and functional residual capacity, because you can't measure this using spirometer.
Okay.
Because that air really doesn't come out of your lung. So you can measure using spirometry only the air which comes and goes in.
Okay. Now we are talking about these pulmonary volumes, right?
Yeah.
How do you think is going to be useful to you as a doctor?
Oh, well, we do, like for example, if I need to differentiate the two types of lung disorders like restrictive lung disease and obstructive lung disease, I need to measure these capacities. Only if I measure these capacities, I'm going to know what sort of disease is actually suffering. For example, the most accurate is timed vital capacity.
Okay.
So
So
because
you were talking about the two types of lung diseases, which was what exactly I expected you to say. Can you tell me the changes which happen in a restrictive disease and in an obstructive disease?
okay, so restrictive disease, there's something problem. The problem is within the lung. There's problem within the compliance. And obstructive is the problem in the airway resistance. So what happens in restrictive diseases, all the volumes will decrease. All the pulmonary capacities and this will decrease. But what happens in obstructive is the residual volume alone will increase. Because the air is not coming out properly. The air is being accumulated within the lungs because the airway is being constricted. So because of that, the residual volume increases in the case of obstructive. Everything else decreases.
Yeah, okay, perfect. You got that right. You have your lung physiology figured out. We'll move on to anatomy, okay?
Okay, so
Hello? Yeah, so
okay.
what do you know about the bronchopulmonary segments?
Bronchopulmonary segments, there are 10 in each lung. It's basically a particular segment which has its own bronchus. It has its own terminal bronchus, segmental bronchus, and it has its own pulmonary bronchial, segmental branch of bronchial artery.
So why are we talking about this bronchopulmonary segments now?
Because the bronchopulmonary segments has its own all compartments. So if we want to remove a particular part of lung which is infected in the case of tuberculosis or whatever, we don't have to remove the entire lobe. We just have to remove the particular segment.
Why?
Because it has its own bronchus, artery, and except vein, everything it has. Lymphatics and everything.
Yeah, you're right. But the example which you gave, right, like tuberculosis, is usually not confined to one bronchus. It has the ability to spread throughout the lung. So that is something
Yeah,
which
it
I
has
wanted to tell you.
the ability to spread.
Okay, I'll ask you one more thing, okay? Suppose there's an aspiration or some kind of foreign body enters the respiratory tract. Which segment or lobe or which part of the lung do you expect it to go and reside in?
Lower lobe superior segment, apical segment of lower lobe.
Which lung?
Of right lung, most common, because the bronchus is not narrow. It is more horizontal. It's almost the same as trachea. The angle of inclination or whatever is very less compared to the right bronchus from the tracheal level.
Right bronchus is shorter and it is more narrower. Okay, the left bronchus is more horizontal, so a chance of substances going into it is very less. So can you give me examples of diseases which I'm going to go about based on this?
Aspiration pneumonia.
Okay. I'm asking about different external things going into the lung. So there are a few like coal mine workers,
Silicosis, pneumococcus, silicosis, asbestosis.
Yeah, yeah, berylliosis, all those things. Okay, very good. So your last question will be from biochemistry. Can you tell me about DNA replication?
So DNA replication, the mode of replication is semi-conservative type of replication, because in this one parent strand is the whatever daughter cell will have the same parent strand as the one it got it from. Only it synthesizes only one new strand. So it's called as semi-conservative type of replication. So what happens is, first it forms a replication fork.
Okay, okay. I'll ask you specific questions. Do you know what does helicase do?
Helicase unwinds the DNA.
Okay, topoisomerase.
Topoisomerase, usually when you're unwinding it, there's some particular tension in the coils formed. So it relieves that particular tension.
Okay, what are Okazaki fragments?
In the leading strand, and there's two types of strand. Actually, the DNA polymerase can synthesize only in one direction, that is 5' direction to 3'. So in the strand which is non-leading, you will have the synthesis is not continuous. It's only formed in fragments. Those fragments are called as Okazaki fragments, and they need to be joined using DNA ligase after the end of replication.
Okay, thank you, Likita. You answered really well. So that will be the end of your questions.
Thank you.
You
Sir.
did really well.